Our next guest is one of Wall Street's most vocal Bitcoin bulls, recently meeting with members of the House Financial Services Committee to discuss what he calls his digital assets framework to help the U.S. become the global crypto leader. Joining us now in a CNBC exclusive is Strategy co-founder, executive chairman Michael Saylor. Strategy announcing this weekend it delivered a Bitcoin gain of $2.6 billion so far this year. Michael, it's paid to keep buying no matter what. My question is, how much are you involved? Because I know you've met with members of the Trump administration, cabinet, family members, I think the president himself. So are you involved in advising around this strategic crypto reserve?
I've met with a bunch of senators on the Democratic and the Republican side, a bunch of Congress people, a few members of cabinet, a few members of the administration, and anybody that wants to talk. You know me, for the last 4.5 years, I'm willing to talk about Bitcoin to anybody, anywhere in the world, every day.
Yes, and we appreciate that, talking to our audience about it. So were you surprised that in the announcement over the weekend, the president mentioned other smaller coins like XRP, Solana, and Cardano, as well as Bitcoin for the strategic crypto fund?
I'm not surprised. I mean, I think there's no way to interpret this other than this is bullish for Bitcoin and is bullish for the entire U.S. crypto industry. You know, there are conservatives that view the right path forward is just a Bitcoin-only policy because Bitcoin is a commodity, an asset without an issuer, a neutral asset, and there's no controversy. But the president's adopted a more liberal economic policy, and that's his right. He's president of the United States.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you would have preferred it, though, if it was a Bitcoin-only fund.
You know, I believe that the best thing for the country is to move forward with an enlightened, progressive policy toward digital assets. I think it's worth $100 trillion to the United States, and ultimately there's 4 different assets that people need to come to grips with. A digital commodity like Bitcoin, an asset without an issuer, backed by digital power. A digital currency like a stable coin backed by a fiat currency equivalent. A digital security, an asset with an issuer backed by a stock or a bond so we can tokenize Wall Street. And then a digital token, which is an asset with an issuer that's backed by digital utility. I think everybody's trying to come to grips with that taxonomy, and as the market gets more educated, we're going to see more progressive, constructive policy engagement.
Michael Saylor breaks his silence and reveals what he privately said to Donald Trump after his visit to the White House for the Crypto Summit. Trust me, you are not going to believe the proposal Saylor had for Trump. Join us as we shed light on the intricate plans of one Michael Saylor and how he wants to further reshape the landscape of crypto and Bitcoin investments. Welcome back to Investocracy Crypto.
I actually think I'll put a wrinkle on what you're saying. If we do balance a budget, it's not from real growth. It's from nominal growth. And so what that means is that this administration figures out a way to grow the GDP in terms of U.S. dollar growth in devaluation, meaning that the dollar will be worth less and less because of inflation. So they will drive inflation. You've already heard Trump talking about interest rates. He wants a 10-year down. He wants a 10-year down. The yield on the 10-year.
Explain this further, because I don't think people quite, they hear him saying it, but I don't think they quite understand what he's talking about there and what the impact of actually getting that 10-year yield down is.
Yeah, so the 10-year treasury is the benchmark treasury of the world. Like, this is the global reserve asset of the world. And he wants that interest rate down because he knows that that is what causes constriction in lending. You know, so if you're going to borrow, and we're all, the whole nation, the whole world, but the whole nation is based on debt. And so if the interest rates are high, the 10-year is kind of the benchmark. So what does that mean? That means that auto loans, home loans, mortgages, they're all keyed off of that interest rate. And then all business loans are keyed off of that interest rate. So depending on how risky your business is, it's going to be keyed off of that 10-year treasury and how much more you have to pay in interest because of the risk of your business. So that means that if the yield on that, meaning if the interest rate on that 10-year is higher, then it's going to be restrictive in the economy. Okay, so the point though is that what Trump wants to do is he wants to make it easy to access capital. And if you have easy access to capital, you have more debt, even just in the private sector, forget about the government, then you're going to have an expansion of the money supply, and you could balance the budget because you've grown that top line so much, which is where you get your taxes from. And instead of collecting, say, $6 trillion of taxes or $5 trillion of taxes, you'll collect $7. And that is possible, but it'll be driven by nominal growth in my mind.
Michael Saylor surprised everyone when he revealed his audacious proposal for the U.S. government to acquire up to 25% of Bitcoin's total supply over the next decade. Imagine Uncle Sam diving headfirst into the realm of cryptocurrency, a move that could reshape the nation's financial future.
I mean, we all know that Bitcoin has been kind of the tip of the wrist spear for years now. And what I mean by that is if you watch the Bitcoin, you'll kind of know what the NASDAQ is going to do alongside it. And so, but one of the important things here, Anthony, is are we talking about Bitcoin in the next year or two, or are we talking about long term? Because it does follow the money supply. So the money supply expands, Bitcoin follows it, it trails it by about 8 to 12 weeks. So it catches up to it, and you can see how that correlation is. However, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, Bitcoin's going to have a decorrelation. It's going to decouple from the risk assets. And what I mean by that is that Bitcoin as an asset class is going to grow, and it's going to solidify as its own asset class, just like gold, right? And you're seeing it kind of happen right now. And so if you look at the entire investable universe, there's $900 trillion of investable assets out there. And Bitcoin's only $2 trillion of that, well, less today, but it's only $2 trillion of that. It's a fraction of a percent of that. And so the longer answer to your question is, as Bitcoin grows and starts to take market share, not just from gold as a store of value, but from real estate, from bonds, which have $630 trillion in those two asset classes, as it starts to take market share from them, then it decouples, and it follows something that is not exactly correlated to the money supply anymore. Now it's gone on that S growth curve, and it gets through that hump and starts that exponential growth again.
One thing becomes crystal clear with all the reactions and talks about this. Saylor's vision is bold, ambitious, and backed by solid data. The idea of a strategic Bitcoin reserve generating over $10 trillion annually by 2045 sounds like something out of a sci-fi blockbuster. Yet, here we are, on the brink of witnessing a financial revolution unlike any other. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
Here is that Biden's administration made a catastrophic error in shutting off the SWIFT access for Russia, and then seizing their treasuries. I mean, they basically just signaled to the world that if you're not a strong ally of the U.S., we may just take your assets, and the ones that we need you to buy. Probably the stupidest decision I've seen made at the administration, there were plenty, but that was unbelievable. So you're seeing the BRICS nations, they're not saying that they want to have their own currency. They just want to get away from owning the U.S. Treasury. So that goes to gold. Of course they're buying gold. They can store gold and be able to access those dollars that they still need. They still need for cross-border trade. They still need to settle things with the U.S. dollars. So they need the dollar, but they're trying to get away from needing the treasury. So that goes to, well, what about Bitcoin? Well, Russia is one of the largest miners of Bitcoin in the world, right? I mean, so they're accumulating it in a way. China supposedly shut down Bitcoin, but they're mining it as well. Are they buying it? It's unclear. We don't know. But what we do know is that the United States is talking about buying Bitcoin as a reserve asset. And just that conversation starts this whole game, the whole game theory. So Once one nation, once a G20 starts buying Bitcoin and it's public, well, then game theory is in play, and then they all have to. There's just no way around it.
Is now the time to ride the wave of change and invest in Bitcoin? With Saylor's unwavering belief in the potential of Bitcoin, could this be the golden ticket to financial prosperity for both individuals and nations alike? What do you think? Share your thoughts. And finally, if you would like to know more about cryptocurrencies or specifically Bitcoin, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.